Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. Quick reminder before we hop into today's episode, we are continuing to grow our Builders of Authority community online. Builders of Authority is committed to helping you become the authority in your industry with personal branding. We have our free Facebook group that you can join in by typing in Builders of Authority into the search bar on Facebook. In that group, we have live daily content, weekly live trainings, and much more. We have our Builders of Authority Mastermind, which includes a private Facebook group, 2 live weekly trainings and sessions, and access to our personal branding course. One-to-one personal branding coaching and consulting is available as well. Reach out to us at buildauthority.co or send me a DM on social media to have a conversation. Our next BOA live event is happening on Wednesday, June 26th here in downtown St. Louis. Tickets are on sale, so go over to buildauthority.co/event to grab your ticket before it's too late. Today is actually a first for our Builders of Authority podcast. We are originally recording this episode as a live all over social media via StreamYard, and then we'll produce the podcast later out at a later date. I'm joined by someone that I've been connected to for a while, but recently just had a chance to meet over Zoom a couple weeks ago. Last week, I was on his podcast. I'll be speaking at his events in Nashville and Orlando this summer. Nashville is coming up here in June, and Orlando is in November. To promote the event, I wanted to have him on and chat a little bit more about the event himself and hopefully have some of you come to it. We cater to a lot of the same crowd, have helped them grow their businesses and become more well-known. I'm excited to learn about today's guest, his story, and the events coming up this year. My guest today is Terry Weaver. Terry, welcome to the show.
Man, thanks for having me, dude. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I don't talk to Cardinals fans, but we're going to let it slide.
We'll let it slide this one time. Yeah, I apologize, but super excited for the thing live coming up here in June. Tell the audience a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, technically, it's just the thing. It's only live because the thing wasn't available anywhere 5 or 6 years ago when we started. So it's cool. All of our social media channels are live. It was just the easiest thing to do, and it was when the .live domain came out, and I really liked that domain.
Yeah.
Just because it just says action. It says it's happening now, and you should be a part of it. And so, yeah, man, we started the thing in, I guess 2017 was when we had our very, very first event in Orlando, Florida. I originally started kind of with a business partner, which was really, if I'm really being honest, was just because I didn't believe in myself enough to go all in on myself, which funny enough, I
said, I feel that. We talked about a little bit about that last week on your podcast.
Yeah. And funny enough, the talk that I gave in our LA event in 2018 was go all in on yourself. To believe in yourself with the audacity that Kanye Smith believes in Kanye. And I intentionally messed up the tense because Kanye always refers to himself in third person for some reason. But man, I just love seeing leaders discover why they're here and come alive to that purpose and get to work on that purpose. So many of us waste so much time chasing, this other people's kind of goals and plans for our lives that we miss out on our own. And, we tend to, here in America, we're enamored by the American dream and chasing all of those things. And those are all great things. Everybody wants to have a happy life and a family and be fulfilled. But I think a lot of us, especially, my generation was kind of the first to say, I don't really want to wait till I'm 65 to live. I want to build a life of freedom now. I don't want to, I want to build something that supports, the things that I care about, not necessarily someone else's schedule. So, we got to work, helping other people get to do that. And I believe live events are honestly, man, one of the best places for people to get to change their life. Because it's amazing when you get in the room full of people who understand the true power of what happens when you start to see that dream that you have been thinking about and that idea that you've had, and you start to meet other people that are actually really doing it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that those people can't learn anything from you. I learn from my coaching clients all the time. In fact, if we're being honest, don't tell them. Many of them are probably watching, but if we're on live, because I posted, hey, come on, join us live. Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your cousin Eddie. But because dude, I remember back in the day. It's funny that you're just now doing this. I remember like in 2019, man, Facebook Lives, it was the deal.
Mhm.
And for most of us, Facebook Lives were the only thing that got us through the pandemic, because we all started to find people, teaching and learning, and they're still happening. The algorithm has kind of turned the volume down a little bit on them. But every day there's amazing people creating content that's free.
Mhm.
That's the amazing thing about the time we live in, of how much just, you have a free Facebook group, you're doing all kinds of amazing things for leaders. There's all these free things happening that even if you don't have the means to get somewhere and to get in the room, you can start to get in Facebook groups. You can start to get in communities, even before, um, your wallet may not be catching up to your dream yet. And, I think the people that you surround yourself with accelerates those things rapidly.
It does. And I think that's one thing that, like, when I went full time in 2020, I was in that position where I'm like, hey, I already feel like I'm behind the curve, because I felt like I wasted some years in corporate America, even though I wouldn't change it for the world. But I had not necessarily like the income in the business, but I didn't take a paycheck for the first 9 months. I joined my first mastermind. I hired my first coach, because I said, if there's a way for me to condense time and ultimately get further along in my journey, I'd rather do that. And that has placed me on a trajectory that I would have never been able to do without being in the room at events like The Thing, being around people like yourself. And I think so many people are afraid to invest in themselves, and they want the immediate gratification or the immediate return on investment, and they're not willing to play the long game.
Yeah, man. If there's one like core principle that I've learned more than anything in the last 5 years, and I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in the lives of my friends that are highly successful, and that's that we're all just one relationship away from a different life.
Mm-hmm.
We are all just needing to know one person that can open doors that we could never open on our own. And I do a practice in my coaching session. In fact, I've made this all free on Discover Your Thing. If you want to go to discoveryourthing.com, there's a completely free course that I've created. And I actually take people through a process to remind them of how incredibly close they are to knowing the people that they need to know. Everybody thinks that, they're so far away, and at different times of my life, I've been 1 degree away. If we're using the Kevin Bacon rule, I've been 1 degree away from all kinds of remarkable people. One text away from saying, "Hey, can you connect me with, um, so and so?" And I posted recently on Facebook a group of like dream podcast guests, like the like insane, crazy people that should never take my phone calls. Like Hulk Hogan's on that list, and like John Maxwell, and all these just like crazy names. Bono, and I got several texts from people that are like, "Hey, dude, I've got a connection point. Let's wait for the right moment, and I'll connect you to them."
Wow.
And not to say that Bono's coming on the podcast at any point, um, but to say that the people we want to know, we know people in our circle that are remarkably close to all of what we need and all of what we want, if we're
Mm.
willing to get around the right people. And I think true success. I was having a conversation over dinner with another entrepreneur last night, and we were talking about how true success is not when you go into the room and people and you mention your name, but when someone else goes into the room on your behalf and your name comes up.
Yeah.
And I want to build communities, and I want to be around people that are always bringing up, like, "Hey, who Adam needs to meet? They need to meet my friend blank," and that
Yep.
person can blow up their business.
Mm.
Um, And man, when that starts happening in your circle, something is going very, very right.
Yeah.
I want to create and curate environments where those things are the norm, where those
Mm.
things are what is expected, not what's like, oh, wow. Because if you think about where we're at right now in the world right now, if you're just a good human, you're above average. That's the
Yeah.
bar. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, you laugh, but it's true, man. Like,
Yeah.
when somebody goes above and beyond and just does like the right golden rule thing to do, people are blown away. And I'm like, that's where we've gotten. Like, how did we get there? Like, what did we do as a culture that things have fallen apart so bad that just being kind and being nice and being generous? And
Mm.
I think for so long we have all fell into the trap of scarcity. We have believed that, because like even when you introduced me, it's like, oh, there's that limiting belief that I'm like, oh wait, do we do the same thing? Yeah, we have the same thing in the same circles, but you can't look at everybody that's out there doing what you do as competition and as a threat.
Mhm.
I don't think that way, and that may you could maybe make the argument that that's bad business, but I'm more interested in good living than than good business, because doing the right thing always has a return on investment, and I want my audience to be exposed to people that are doing remarkable things and that are remarkable people and that aren't just there to see what they could get, but that are there to give a ton of value. And I know that's like something all the bro marketers say, but you know, I follow a lot of conversations on the internet, and I'm always amazed. I saw a post yesterday. It's almost like I'm so tired of speakers like going to events and doing the same talk everywhere they go. And I'm like, for the most part, most of our speakers create a talk or customize it just for our audience.
Mhm.
Anybody that's just that they're gonna take the time to get to know the people the people that are coming. All of my speakers are always asking me, "Hey man, who's signing up? Who's coming? Where are they at in business?" And the thing's complicated like that because we have a diverse lineup of people who use a personal brand to get their message and their story across.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of times that plays out through influence, or it plays out through stages, or attention and authority and influence. All of those things are the paths to actually being successful. um it's funny, I saw you were doing a training earlier today in your Facebook group about how to get on more podcasts, and I've been on like 3 or 4 podcasts in the past couple of days. And one of the guys in my coaching program, he's like, "Man, how are you doing that? Like, are you using a service? What are you using, a software?" I'm like, honestly, I'm kind of like the idiot in the street banging on a trash can lid, trying to make noise in such a way that people are listening,
Yeah.
and people are calling me.
Mhm.
People are reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I want to have a conversation. This is interesting. Let's talk about that." Um, and oddly enough, man, I'm way more interested in like having conversations like you and I are doing right now than like partaking in interviews.
Mhm.
When people email me and say, "Hey, I've got these 10 questions you can ask me," I'm like, this probably isn't. This probably isn't what you're gonna. You're probably not gonna enjoy our time together if you're wanting prepared questions.
Yeah. Well, the conversation, like the real in the life, in the moment stuff is what is real and authentic. Any like scripted questions, scripted answers, then that just kind of turns into everything else. And I think that's where people get, because like I even was asking people in my group, hey, how many podcasts are you getting on? What struggles are you going through? And people are like, oh, there's so many podcasts out there. There's so many this and that. And I responded to somebody, I said, hey, it's the 80-20-20 rule, right? 80% of the top of podcasting and where real magic happens is done by 20%, if not less, of the people that are out there, as within any industry. And I think so much in the world today is a commodity because people just do things to check the box. And if you do anything just to check the box, you're going to get the results that you're not looking for and complain that this doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think Andy Stanley is one of my favorite leaders. He has some of the best material, but he says, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And how that plays out in podcasting is sometimes that's really obvious to me. By the time I get on the show, I'm like, I'm in that moment where you click into StreamYard or Riverside or whatever the program they're using, and you're looking at the screen before they get there, and you're going, "Oh man, this might not be a great idea." They're not there yet. You're kind of reconsidering your life choices that got you to that moment.
Yep.
And then I remember that if I can make a difference, even on that one person that's hosting the show or their third cousin that listens to it, that if just one person, if I can make a difference in one person's life and get them moving towards what they're supposed to be moving towards, and I can make a connection with them and get them connected, get them on my email list, get them, give them my free course, give them, get them listening to my podcast, I've won.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that's not very scalable, but and as you've probably learned this, I've been speaking. I just kind of had the realization that the first time somebody handed me a check to speak on a stage was 30 years ago. And I have gone some really, really cool places, Montego Bay, Jamaica, Toronto, Vancouver, Seattle, and then a lot of places where people make meth in the middle of nowhere in Missouri. No offense to Missouri. But the places that are in between the Buc-ee's signs on the road travel if you're from the South. But just there's a lot of places. Typically, you can tell when I'm traveling of how cool the city is by whether my wife decides to go with me or not. She always manages to make it to Jamaica. She didn't miss that one. I'm in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and she's always tends to be busy that week.
Funny how that works.
but I know that sometimes my biggest impact is in those places. And I can't get enamored by we can't get so distracted by necessarily what or how sexy the location is. Sure, it's awesome to go hang out and speak in San Diego in the middle of the winter. But sometimes it's super impactful to go to Minneapolis, Minnesota in the middle of winter too. Although I spoke in Chicago, it was one of the coolest speaking things I ever did. Before I did full-time in business coaching, I also did stuff in the church, and I got to do something for one of my heroes, and that's Billy Graham. And I was at Wheaton College speaking at the Billy Graham Center, and I walked outside and it was -22. And I'm like, this is a dream, but this is also a nightmare. Now, luckily, the next day I was going to Orange County, California, to speak at an event. And, sometimes it's like that. Sometimes the things that we do don't necessarily look awesome on paper, but the impact we make when we're there has nothing to do with the geography that we get to make a difference wherever we are. And, I don't think we should get bogged down in podcasting or anything with, it's not as cool and as sexy as people think it is. But, a lot of times those shows that no one's listening to, when you may, or the stages that people may not think, man, that's not that cool of a thing to go do, that you're making the biggest impact, because those people are kind of there because they're hungry and they're desperate. They didn't necessarily show up because they had to for their organization. They showed up because, man, they're starving and they need help. And, I think, sure, I love doing events. When I produce events, I try to do them in cool places. We do an event in Orlando. We do an event in my hometown and where we live now in Nashville, Tennessee. We've done events in the Smoky Mountains and in Jamaica, and, are working on a mastermind on a cruise, and, all these things. And those things are all cool and they're all fun to say that you did. But also what I've learned is the people that are there are way more important than the place that you're at. The community that you surround yourself in. And man, when I started the thing, I never had any intentions of I didn't know that I was building community. In fact, I remember I was invited to go speak on community. I'm like, I'm not even sure I'm qualified to do that. They're like, and the person told me why I was. And oftentimes the things that we're most equipped to do, we don't always set out to do. We just kind of realize like, oh, that's what we're doing. And it's, once we start discovering that, and then we start to get super intentional about, oh, that's what people love. That's what people connect with. Now let's double down on that, and let's really make sure that experience continues to happen. And let's protect that part of the experience and make sure no one is coming in from the outside taking away from that.
Mm. Yeah. I think a lot of things you said there. I think, for me, I see people all the time follow what they believe they need to be doing based on what other people have deemed as successful or what would be successful for them. And usually it's around money or whatever. It's usually not around like the impact and the lifestyle that you talked about. And I've had that trajectory change in my life. Not that it was always about the money, but there was a place of like comfortability of I was almost fighting what Builders of Authority is right now. And for me to continue to go doing personal branding because I didn't realize what people were actually needing and wanting from me versus what I was doing. And those were two kind of completely different things. So I think what you said resonates a lot with me. Talk to us a little bit about the thing coming up here in Nashville in June. Kind of what can people expect? Who is it ideally for? And what are some takeaways that people get from coming to your events?
I mean, obviously, like I just said, the community aspect of it, man, that the people that are there with you are you're getting in the room with people who are connected to a really clear mission and a really clear purpose about making a difference through the work they do. And the speakers and many of the attendees are there equally to help not just themselves to you. And we kind of, there's a scene in The Greatest Showman. You ask who it's for, of where P.T. Barnum kind of comes around and posts this sign on the where he starts looking for remarkable people. And for us, I kind of got the inspiration from. There's a poem by author O'Shaughnessy that's in the original Willy Wonka. The we are the music makers, we are the dreamers and the doers. But we've kind of said the dreamers, the doers, the leaders, the creators, the mavericks, and the movers and the shakers. And that's who we're looking for. I love the word mavericks. That's a word that's really resonated with me. We used to say the misfits. And then we started to get some interesting people that we realized, okay, maybe you guys take this a little too literally. But people who really think different. Because what's interesting to what you said, that at some point we all kind of get out the copy machine, right? And copy the path that someone else took. But man, as I meet highly successful people, the one thing that they have in common almost every single time is every one of them has said, you know what? True success is me defining what success is.
Mm.
True success is not me jumping on someone else's train, but me laying my own track and creating my own path. Seth Godin has a great quote that, the world rewards people who create maps, not people who follow them. And that's who the thing is for. The thing is for people who really have a desire to make a difference in the world and to make a difference in their own life by maybe doing something that doesn't necessarily like have a blueprint or have that there's, when you think about the work that we do, man, there's not really a book on what we do. There's not like a manual on this. It's funny because when you look up coaching, right? The number of books on coaching that are actually books on coaching are less than 10. Because I tried to find one to get people to read when I was trying to certify some people for something.
Yeah.
And I bought like 10 of them, and none of them actually taught anybody anything to do with coaching. which is kind of giving me the idea like, what if I got together my favorite coaches? But and that's what we all do, right? We all find a hole in something that someone is not, something that is undone, or something that was done and done poorly, and try to find a way to do it in a new way, in a fresh way. And when you look at the people that we look up to, it's funny. I mentioned Billy Graham earlier in this call. One of the things I'm working on is kind of this idea around, I asked a question when Billy Graham passed away, like who was the next Billy Graham? And I started asking that about every leader that I look up to. Who's the next Walt Disney? Who's the next Jim Henson? Who's the next Fred Rogers? Who's the next Zig Ziglar? And here's the reality: there isn't a next for any of those people. There are people doing things differently. There are people that are doing things, in other ways. But I want the place to be, the thing to be the place where people who want to do remarkable things come together. Somebody kind of got me on this line of thinking that, in a lot of ways, the work that I do is that of Nick Fury, in the Avengers, who I want to assemble remarkable people who come together to realize that they could do more together than they could do on their own. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish by inviting people to come to a conference for a couple of days in either Nashville or Orlando. And then we're going to do some fun things around it, because that's just what we do. Because I think the mindset of thinking like a child is sometimes, if you're watching this on video right now, if you're watching this on Facebook Live as we're actually recording it, I got my office filled with all kinds of fun and goofy things. On my desk on the other side that you can't see is filled with even more stuff. And that's to remind me that sometimes the biggest problems require us to think with the audacity of a child. Because when we're born, man, and when we start to get, you guys are making babies over there, and you're starting to learn. When you put crayons and paper in front of your kids, you don't have to tell them what to do with it. They just start going. And if you put crayons in front of an adult, they look at you like you've lost your mind. And I love going and doing that. I do corporate training where I'll go in and do that. I did that with a CEO of a very powerful social media organization and their team this last fall in San Diego. And I had all the leaders separate from the, I told them that, hey, I've got 3 boxes of Legos. I got this big, 800-piece Lego sets. I want you guys to build the biggest and most substantial thing you could possibly build. Oh, and by the way, the leaders can't speak. So if you're a supervisor, if you're a team lead, you can't talk. And, the CEO was sitting there looking at me like, man, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what this is. I don't know who on my team said you could come and do this. But by the end, he was like, man, I got it. I got why you were doing all the goofy things you had us doing, because it got us to the place where we realized that through play that, man, we could do so many incredible things if we would just learn how to communicate and how to unleash our team to do amazing things. Which is why in Orlando, we go to Disney World as part of the event. And in Nashville, we go to a Savannah Bananas game. And if you haven't seen the Savannah Bananas live, it is the most remarkable thing in sports entertainment or in sporting events that I've ever seen. I'm a huge baseball fan. I love the Atlanta Braves. I went to our minor league club this last weekend in Nashville before I went out of town. And I was just like, man, baseball is boring when it's done badly. The especially minor league, because there's nothing at stake.
Yeah.
But the Savannah Bananas, man, I went in that, and we have that same, we have a suite at the same park where our minor league ball club. And if you don't know this about the Savannah Bananas, it is the hardest ticket to get in sports.
Oh yeah.
It's easier to get Super Bowl tickets than it is to get Savannah Bananas tickets. They sell, like, I think this year they're selling 1.5 million tickets, and they have a waiting list of 4 million people.
That's insane.
For those tickets. They sold out Fenway Park in 7 minutes. But we have a suite behind home plate in Nashville for the thing. And in fact, for your audience, if they use your code, which is authority, the first person that signs up for a VIP or a VIP ticket, which gets you bananas. I have a copy right here. That I had Jesse on my podcast, and he signed some books for me. And so this book is signed by Jesse, the founder of the Savannah Bananas. Right here, I'll show it on camera so you can see it's signed. It's signed, and it's one of my favorite business books of all time. And I think one of the things we're going to kind of unpack is how do you do that in your business? How do you create raving fans? How do you create people who want that kind of, we've all watched the Taylor Swift effect in the world, right? Of what happens when she releases or does anything or sneezes, right? People are paying attention, and every one of us should want the people that are attracted to our brands to be, we should want that kind of attention. Maybe not on her scale, right? But we should want a group of people paying that kind of attention to us. Maybe a little less attention, right? Just a little less.
Little less.
Just a little. I don't want. Let's not unleash the Swifties on us today. Nobody wants that. But yeah, man, I think it's super powerful when people come together and learn from other people that may know more about something, and we have a list of people that are coming, everything from speaking to communication to how to use different types of social media in your business, how to use storytelling in your business, how to put the right phrases and language on your landing page so your website goes from crickets to conversions. And really what I do is I just start asking everyone in our community, like, what I start asking immediately after the previous event, like, hey, what problems are you having? And I start literally looking for speakers that do that. And when I can't find them, I go to my friends and say, hey, who do you know? Who do you know? And I start finding out what people are struggling with. And we start building a list of people and speakers that can, that can solve them. And dude, I'll be honest, I invited you, and we had a bunch of people that applied to speak at the thing this year. And we're literally out of the large number of people, literally just a handful are getting selected. And you stood out because you were remarkable. You were doing some things, and you proved, you made it really clear, man, that you were doing the work to step into this thing that you were really passionate about. And there's a lot of people that are listening right now that are going, man, I don't know, another event. We don't need another event. I've already gone to this event or that event. And man, it's amazing what happens when people bet on themselves and show up for themselves.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that are going to sit around and go, man, I wish. And then there's a very, very small group of people that say, you know what, I will, I'm going to, I'm doing it. I'm showing up. I'm picking myself. I'm joining. I'm making it happen. I'm not waiting. And, I think, John Mayer had a popular song a few years ago that I'm waiting on the world to change. And I remember hearing that song and went, John, that's cute. And I don't want to wait. I actually want to go out and change the world. I actually want to go out and make a difference and do the work that's required to make an impact and to help other people actually do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. No reason to wait. Take action, make a difference, and build the life of your dreams. So many people are waiting for the right opportunity, the right moment. There's never going to be a right moment.
Nope.
Tell people, like, somebody told me not too long ago, is like, yeah, it's like having a kid. You're never going to be ready for it. You got to take action, and you got to just go with the flow. So I'm really excited about this event. I know it's going to be super impactful. Excited. I'll be speaking at both Nashville and Orlando. What is the website where people can go learn more about the events and get tickets and all that stuff?
Thething.live will take you to either one of those websites. Each event kind of has its own website, but thething.live takes you to Nashville and to Orlando. If you're listening to it right now, because it's next, The Thing Nashville goes right to the Nashville event. You could probably figure out what Orlando is from there. You don't have to use a lot of thinking to figure out where we're going from there. But yeah, man, and I'll be honest with you, when we started this, I had no desire to be in the event business. Right? Like, events are a pain in the butt. They're a lot of work. They're hard to, when you break even, you feel like you've achieved something. But there's nothing like a live event where lives actually transform right in front of you. There's nothing like a live event where, especially if it's done right, and not every live event is this way, but if the event's done right, I don't want to just send you home inspired. I want to send you home inspired to act. I don't want you just to be inspired to act. I want you to be able to actually have been equipped to do so. And I actually want to make sure that every speaker has left you with something that you can go and implement that next week in your business. And if you go to an event like the thing and you pick up one or two things, you've won, right? But most people go home with tons of action points, and actually the difference is the people that actually take the action versus the people that just talk about taking the action. But the first action step you have to take is you've got to get in the room. You have to say, I'm willing to bet on myself. I'm willing to get there. I'm willing to travel to Nashville or Orlando and get there and pick myself. But, heck, I know a lot of your audience is in St. Louis. It's not that far of a drive just to get in the car and come here from St. Louis. I apologize for the state of Kentucky that you've got to drive through on the way. That road just seems like it stretches it a couple of feet every time I take it. But yeah, man, I think the event in Nashville is shaping up to be one of the best events we've ever done. The lineup for both events is insane. I'm as we add speakers every time, I'm always just amazed at the people that say yes, and just we always try to throw a few surprises in there and add some things that because we have people that we have a couple people that have been to every single event that have never missed one, and so when those people start to come, I want to make sure it's still remarkable for them. I want to make sure it's still great for them, and I want to make sure if you've never been, that you come in and feel welcome and feel like the community cares about you and wants to see you win. And I think most of us in business sit in our homes or in our offices or in our co-working spaces, and we sit in these places, and there isn't anyone else hoping that we'll win. And that's what the thing is a place where other people really genuinely hope you win and genuinely know how to help you make sure you do. And unfortunately, that's not normal. But the more people we can help, man, the more people we can connect with experiences like this, the more people that may be motivated to go out and do the same. And one of our goals for everyone that comes to the thing is I don't want you to come to the thing and sit on the back row. The reason why we don't have to actually look for that many speakers is because the majority of our speakers were attendees. They came and sat on the back row. I love telling the story of Liz Wilcox, who came to our event in 2019. She at the time was had an RV blog, and she was like, "This is miserable." And she met one of the speakers, and the speaker was like, "I tell you what to do. You get this thing sponsored. Here's the path to sponsorship." She went out and raised like $45,000 or $50,000 in sponsorship for her event, and then she turned around and sold that event and started a whole new business. Liz now runs a program called the email marketing membership. It's almost $500,000 a year. She's on Survivor 46 that I'll watch tonight after we're done recording this, right? And she's one of our favorite people every year that come to the event because now she's a speaker.
Yeah.
And in 2020, she sent me a Loom video, shaking the entire time through the video, never having spoke before, and much like you, went and hired a speaker coach. Showed up at our event that we were crazy enough to do in November of 2020. Had never spoken on stage before. Spoke, and we were in a luxury home in Orlando, Florida that had a movie theater that sat 45 people. We were packed to the gills in there. I'm sure we all got sick because of it, but whatever. It was the best thing ever. We all left motivated in the time when everybody else was running and hiding. We were running towards making our businesses actually happen and trying to help more people. And I love to watch people win. And last summer she disappeared and I was like, I know where she is, because she said, I want to be on Survivor. And obviously she had an NDA signed, and she goes out and then she went and took action. And, now the whole world's watching about her. And, there's Reddit threads about her, which are, that's a weird place. But, she was somebody that took action. And what I love about Liz is she is the example of what is possible. And I think our greatest job as a leader is to show other people what's possible.
Absolutely.
And, she's succeeding, she's winning. And I'm not even trying to say that the thing has anything to do with her success, other than every Wednesday when that show comes on, that I gotta admit, I don't love Survivor. It's not my favorite show. But to watch the internet light up with our entire community and every speaker and every attendee for the past 4 or 5 years get on the internet and cheer on their friend that's on Survivor, that they met at a conference where she was talking about email marketing, and now, now all of these people are rooting and cheering her on, to do something she's always said she wanted to do, which was be a contestant on Survivor. Which, funny enough, the people on Survivor are making the joke that she's a billionaire. She's not. But, she has an email membership that's $9 a month that gives her the freedom to have the life that she wants.
Yeah.
All because at one point when she first came to the event in 2019, that 2019 event she came to, she didn't know that where she was going to get the money to pay for the hotel room to come to the event. But she knew that if she got around the right people, everything would change. And, I'm not saying you'll have those results, but I am saying that if you're willing to bet on yourself and you're willing to actually go somewhere, get in the right rooms and start taking actions, that your life will start changing. It may not be from Adam's talk, or it may not be from mine, but it may be from the weirdo that you sit at the table next to that has something in common with you, and you guys start collaborating, and who knows what happens next. And, there's other stories like Liz's that are just like that, of people who got excited about something and found the people that believed in them and they were able to push them to actually take the leap and to step into those things that everyone else is like, you can't do that. That's a crazy idea. Why would you ever? Just like you and I talked about it on our episode of on my podcast of you giving up a career in medical sales that was a good, solid, steady thread of money kept flowing in, but you weren't happy, you weren't fulfilled, and you were tired of Hampton Inns, in cities that you didn't want to be in, doing
Chillicothe, Missouri.
Yes. Oddly, I've been there. And I think that there's a group of people in life that just accept that's the way that it is. And then there's another group of people in life that say, you know what? There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And I'm going to change my life because I know that no one else is coming. And so if you want to change, I can't say you'll change your life, but if you want to change your trajectory of the next 6 to 12 months of your life, man, get in the room of an event like The Thing. And if it's not this event, go to Adam's event. Find a place where people will invest in you, people who will believe in you, people who will push you forward, and people who will help give you the tools so that you can actually break through.
Love it. Well, yeah, listen to what Terry said. This is going to be an incredible series of events. I'm super excited to speak at the events. Really, really excited. Make sure you go over to the website, and we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. It's in the description if you're watching live now on social media, and make sure to use the code authority If nobody's used it yet, you can get that free book from Terry, as he mentions, with that signed copy from Jesse Cole. Is he the owner or the CEO?
Yeah, he's the owner of
the owner of Savannah Bananas.
Yeah, and if you're the first, I'll throw in my book too, just because.
There we go.
Because it's sitting here too.
Love it. Well, thanks for an incredible episode, Terry. I'm super excited to hang out here in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's only less than 2 months away, so it's going to be here soon. People definitely here in the Midwest and St. Louis, make the trip to Nashville so that way your life can get impacted. And we'll see you here soon. Thanks again for tuning in to today's episode. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, making a big push for reviews this year. It definitely moves the needle. And remember, authority isn't built overnight. It's built over time.
Love it.